Ladies and gentlemen, the prophet Malachi, whose words we read, contains a hope for the future. It has to do with Elijah the prophet, and the hope and the promise, more accurately, is that when God sends Elijah, the generations are going to be more inclined to turn towards each other in reconciliation and in unity. So Elijah's going to come, and the words that are written, Veheshiv levavot al banim velev banim al avotam, the hearts of the parents will be turned towards the children, and the hearts of the children will be turned towards the parents. I think it is so important to be able to reflect at this time in our history, and at this time in the calendar, days before Passover, on what it actually means for the different generations to somehow have their hearts turned towards each other. We often speak about what we would call the generation gap, that younger people look to older people and think they don't understand, and older people look to younger people and think, when are they going to grow up and understand? And there are so many instances of a kind of clash that takes place. I was recently sitting with the high school class that I teach here at Temple Israel, and I said to the students, think about a time when you are frustrated with your parents. It didn't take them very long to think about a moment that was frustrating that they experienced with their parents. And I said, what is frustrating about it? What is it that you wish it would be different? And so a number of them said things, and really what they were all saying was that they wished that their parents would give them the space to figure out their own lives without telling them all the time, you should be doing it this way, you should be doing it that way, or when they say something, having a response that younger people perceive as being judgmental and too coercive. Now, interestingly, I was speaking to a group of adults at our annual Scotch and Seder. It's sponsored by the Men's Club. If you haven't been, I urge anybody of a certain age to come and to participate. And I said to this group, I would like you to share with me one thing about the younger generation. So let's broadly define, teens into the next few decades. So something that gives you hope and something that makes you nervous. So we started with the hope. So somebody said, what gives me hope is that this younger generation is more embracing of the diversity that exists among human beings, more embracing of allowing people to live their lives authentically, less judgmental. And ultimately, this person said, that's a positive thing. Now, when we got to the anxious part, and there were more expressions of anxiety than there were of hope, interestingly enough, somebody said the emphasis on social media makes them nervous. They look at children, teens, who are sitting in a room next to each other and are so absorbed in their iPhones that you wonder if they even notice that there are people sitting on either side of them. This person was saying it makes him anxious that there is a generation that might not have the capacity to understand how to conduct themselves in social situations, to understand how to, read facial expressions and to be responsive, and deeper things about what it means to connect. Somebody else said it makes him anxious that he worries about the future of the Jewish people, speaking specifically as a Jewish person. And he worries, with all of the freedoms, with all of the opportunities, what's going to happen to our people as a younger generation is often less schooled and knowledgeable in the traditions, and often embraces a universalism that somehow glides past the unique aspects of what it means to be part of the Jewish people. And I thought to myself, very interesting. Is it possible taking a step back to appropriately embrace freedoms, to appropriately allow people to be who they are meant to be in the world, and at the same time to connect to and to triumph a religious tradition that is a specific tradition with a specific place, Medinat Yisrael. Is it possible to have the openness and the commitment? So, ladies and gentlemen, when I was a kid, people said to me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I thought I wanted to be a musician. My mother said to me, "If you need to, you can always play piano in Nordstrom in the lobby. And you can fall back on that if your other plans fall through." So I thought about being a musician. I thought about being a therapist. One thing that I never really thought about, but if I think about it, it's kind of what I am, is a botanist. So I'll explain. A botanist helps to create new species. It takes a plant and it says, I'm going to take this plant and I'm going to take that plant and I'm going to see if I can get the plants to grow together and to create something that is new and extraordinary. What I would love to do as a spiritual botanist is to somehow harmonize and join the embrace of freedom and opportunity that is a part of this country with the appreciation for a certain type of commitment that is part of our people. And I think that they're both possible. So I'm going to suggest two things. First, I think it's really important when we are sitting down at the Seder, it's kind of like a rehearsal, for us to be open to the questions, especially that younger people have. I don't think that a proper response is, this is how we do it, and sit back down. I think that younger people have questions about why and about what. They have questions about their faith. They have questions about our tradition. And if we're not sure how to respond, we should keep the door open and invite a conversation. You can welcome me to be part of that conversation. It is very important to keep those channels open. At the same time, I hope that younger people at the Seder understand that those who are reciting certain tunes, those who have certain recipes, those who are sharing certain traditions are not going to be around forever. Bring a recording, sit with these individuals, learn these traditions, embrace them, and make them part of your own traditions. You can do it a little bit differently, but don't let it completely disappear. So this is a place where the older and the younger with the open and the committed can join together. And the second has to do with the way that we approach Medinat Yisrael, the state of Israel. And that is extremely complicated. So we are seeing that the embrace of openness, of freedoms, in all sorts of realms, which I have spoken about and which I applaud, sometimes leads to what I would say is a false demonization of Israel. Israel being presented as, one might think, the only nation that has issues with human rights, the only nation that has certain challenges. And I want to share with you, in the spirit of botany, that it is possible to embrace freedoms and also to be appropriately and fairly supportive of Israel through her challenges. Very recently, an individual for whom I have great respect, Yehuda Kurtzer, the president of the Hartman Institute of North America, he spoke at a gathering of the Episcopalian leadership, and this group is trying to put forth a resolution that accuses Israel of apartheid and says that this is something which goes against our Christian values. You have to understand, Yehuda Kurtzer fully embraces liberal openness and freedom for all individuals. The Hartman Institute is committed to interfaith learning and dialogue as a way of deepening people's understanding. But he gave testimony at this convention, and he did it in a very forceful way, and it is an example of the kind of harmonizing that is so rare You're either this or you're either that. This is a beautiful graft. If you will, I'll share it and then I'll conclude. He said, I have no doubt that the scorecard of our performance as a people, the Jewish people, is mixed. He said, look, we are back on a land that has strong connection to us. Zionism is an experiment, but a very important experiment, and we ain't perfect. But who will you, as our Christian friends and siblings, choose to be in the Jewish people's unfolding story? For much of our history, our very identity was constructed by Christendom as an object lesson for the teachings of the church. That cannot hold anymore and must not. We Jews are living out a new story for which there is no easy template. These movements to boycott Israel, to demonize Israel by labeling it as an apartheid or failed state, collapse legitimate criticism of the state with a desire to say something exceptional about the moral failings of the Jewish state. As a Jew, as a leader of an institution committed to deep interfaith friendship and partnership, to holy envy between peoples of different faiths, I am here to say that is a profound betrayal of all that has happened in Jewish-Christian reconciliation. Brilliant. Yehuda Kurtzer is a voice for acceptance. Yehuda Kurtzer is a voice for embracing the freedoms that America gives us in ways that allow human beings to actualize who they are in this extended holy space. But he also recognizes the importance of calling out hypocrisy and double standard, the importance of recognizing what it is that the Jewish community can and should contribute to humanity. I'm going to conclude. The generations often are at loggerheads. It is possible if we talk to each other. It is possible if our hearts are truly open to each other to find a space that allows for the universal and the particular, to find a space that allows human freedom to flourish in a way that is in the service of responsibility and commitment. It is possible, especially those of us who are part of the Jewish people, to steer a path forward that brings it all together. And we don't have to wait for Elijah to come. If we are open to each other, the hearts of the parents and the hearts of the children can do great things together. I know we can. Shabbat Shalom.